Derek DeBoer. And I'm Brooke DeBoer. And these are our kids, Paige, Haylee, and Ryann. This is the Fastlife. I created it. Derek races, and I film. We are a family who live our dreams. It was Derek's 40th birthday, and I knew his wish. Part of it had already come true. My dream has always been to make films and tell inspiring stories, so I had hired a film crew for the weekend to make a teaser for an inspiring show about Derek's racing and the TRG Aston Martin racing team. This was going to be a big weekend for both of us. A typical race weekend is packed with activities. One of the reasons Derek has been successful coming into racing later in life is because he takes the time to work on relationships. Our sponsor had set up an event for us at a private car storage garage.
I do catch myself oftentimes saying you have to be careful what you wish for, because I think sometimes us race car drivers sound a little whiny because people look at us and go, man, you have the coolest job in the world, you get to go drive race cars. And that's what we all say, but then when we talk, it's like, oh man, I got another race weekend, which means it starts on Wednesday. And what are the sponsor commitments? What are the team events? What is this and that you have to go do?
Well, we've got another party, as usual, for a driver. You not only have to drive the race cars, but unfortunately, a lot of these people get to have glasses of wine, and we get to drink water and come mingle with people and check out their cool cars. We go racing tomorrow. That's what we're here for.
After a full day at the track with noise, weather, and emotions running on high, I did a quick change into cocktail attire in the RV at the track.
There's millions of dollars of cars around here. So I thought, what a better place to have a little get together, everybody chill out, because you don't get to see a DB9 very often. You don't get to see a Ferrari. You don't get to see a 54 Chevy. You don't get to see a Morgan. You don't get to see a Defender. All these cars, people only see in movies, but not in real life. So from that aspect, I just wanted people to come, hang out, have a little Texas barbecue, and just chill out and get to know each other.
I was windburned and exhausted, but determined to help Derek on sponsorships by being at all the events. The tensions were high upon arrival, and there didn't seem to be much food. There was also supposed to be a 40th birthday cake for Derek, which was mysteriously absent as well. I decided right then and there the only way out was through.
I'm doing okay. I'm actually, my cheeks feel warm. I feel like I got some sun today. I feel like I worked really hard today, but I always do when I'm with Derek at the racetrack.
What are you so worried about?
I'm worried about if you get in a crash.
Yeah? How come?
Because I've seen a lot of them.
Been seeing big ones? You know what, they kind of show those a lot of the time because people are excited about them, and it kind of creates drama and excitement. But do you know what one of the coolest things are about the race car I drive?
What?
You know all those mechanics that we work with and all the special stuff that I wear?
Yeah.
It's all to make it safer. It's all to make it safe. Have you ever seen any of those bars inside of my car?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen them in your mom's car when you're riding to school? No, we have those in our race cars only to make it safe and protect us. It's like a shelter around us. And that fancy helmet I have that people talk about how cool it looks, it's not really just about how cool it looks. That is the best helmet that you can have on your head to protect you. So you don't have anything to worry about. Plus I'm gonna drive smart. I drive smart. You don't have to worry. I'm very excited for the day to start, because kind of once it starts, the momentum goes and it carries you through. You don't get to worry about it anymore. You just go do. And that's kind of my thing with racing. Or with anything in life. I'm not a very good watcher. I like to do. So let's get the day going, go qualify, and go win a race.
was filled with challenges from the very beginning. There was uncertainty with how the season was going to go, and it hadn't even started yet.
Okay, Dad's out of the car and he's okay, so you don't need to worry. Okay? And then you're gonna be here when he goes in the race, and so we can figure out where you're gonna be comfortable being, where you won't be too nervous, okay?
I think you're just nervous, like you talked about last night. So maybe you can, when you get here, we can look at the car again and I can show you how it's just as safe as the other one. I mean, it makes me feel really guilty. Like, why should my kids have to feel like this?
Well, it's not your fault that they're feeling nervous.
I can make them not feel nervous by not even being here, though.
We didn't know if the sponsorship was real and how things were going to be paid for. And then it's also a lot of stress and pressure just showing up. My first real full pro racing season. It's a chance to go show your cards, go show that you belong there. And instead of being able to only focus on that, it was chasing money and the stress and, you know, issues with family and the kids, and oh yeah, let's fit some racing in those cracks. There's so much more that goes into a race than just the green flag dropping. The whole weekend is filled with testing and practice sessions where each time we go out, we're looking for that advantage, the edge. How do we make our car faster? How do we get to be as fast as the other cars around us? What cards are people holding up their sleeve? And that's what Chris and I had been working on, you know, through all the practice sessions. How can we improve? How can we improve as a driver? How can we improve our car to better adapt to the track? And that's how Thursday and Friday of a race weekend are spent.
Derek just ran the best lap of his weekend, so he's easily in the top 10.
You know, we qualified on Friday and ultimately did have a good performance. I was somehow able to focus on the task at hand with all the distractions that were happening around me. For my first race of my first full pro season, to have been in the top third of the field felt pretty good. You know, you kind of go into it not knowing where you're going to fit in and where you belong. So that felt like a pretty successful run, especially with all the other challenges going on.
We need pushed a little bit to improve things, because I'll just be satisfied or work around something unless somebody draws it out of me. So I'm working better and communicating more. I think if we do this,
don't be afraid to say doing this, doing that, you know, what's going on, etc.
Derek was learning to speak up, and I liked that. He struggles with that in his everyday life. In order to be a good driver and to be safe on the track, you have to be able to communicate clearly and directly with your team.
We're gonna really change the camber again. So like when we first started, we were at like 3.3, right? 4 in the camber. We made our drop. It went to 4.2. So we had, more. So we had to stand, we stood stuff back up, back to where we like it. And then I think
so as long as we keep doing that each time we go lower and get it back to there, we know we're
same spot. We're good. The car's
good. Where's better? Where's lower?
Yep. Yeah, the car will just handle better.
Make sure we still pass tech when we get on the podium at the end.
Exactly. That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, last year at Sonoma, me and the Bentley were battling through turn 4, and we were side by side, and we're mixing up mirrors. And, you know, they're on the right side, so I was looking over. It's like, there's no driver in there. Where'd he go?
Ryan is racing. So they say.
Yeah. Qualified in 8th.
Oh, good.
Front third of the field, and ran the fastest lap we ran all weekend. It's a good time to do it.
All right. What time is the race?
I'm on the grid at 10 after 12. Race starts at 12:20.
12:20. Okay.
Yeah.
It was race day. Time to focus on the task at hand. I think that's the thing Derek likes about racing the most. It's permission to be in the moment and not to worry about anything or anyone else. The fear of losing everything, including the dream, was overwhelming. There were so many unanswered questions. Who would pay for the races we were doing? Would we be held responsible? It was our sponsor who had signed the contract. We weren't necessarily doing anything wrong. Had we signed the contract, we would have paid if we could.
I felt pretty good about qualifying in an 8th position for my first pro race of my first pro season. Seemed like a good spot to be.
We had worked hard to earn Kevin and the team's trust. What would happen to our relationship? What would happen to the racing? What would happen to the dream?
I don't think there's any race start that's like a Pirelli World Challenge standing start. I'll never forget the first one that I did, which was at Sonoma. And it was like being in a feeding frenzy with sharks and a bunch of fish thrown in the water. You better be ready to go when those lights turn off. And Kodo is no exception to that. Other than the fact that I tend to have a little bit of a conservative way about me. So I've really had to work in my racing life to be able to like check that at the door. But at the same time, it's part of what's been able to allow me to have such a good finishing record. I knew coming into the season that I was the new guy, I was the new driver. So I had a lot to prove, but I also had to check my ego at the door. You know, Chris Wilson's been a pro driver for many, many years. So to see him qualify on pole and me be in 8th, yeah, I would have liked to have been in the top 3 or 4 as well and show that I've got this right out of the gates. But I knew there was work to be done. I knew there was areas that I needed to improve, and it ultimately probably gave me some confidence that I had a pretty great teammate and coach to be there that clearly knows what he's talking about. And Chris and I work really well together.
I knew one of the only things Derek had left to control was his performance on the racetrack. I had questions. I didn't know if he was going to be good enough. We hadn't had enough success or time on the racetrack yet for me to feel 100% convinced that we were doing the right thing, that he was going to be able to be good enough, that it was going to work just based on his ability.
I wasn't necessarily the fastest car. I hadn't had a lot of time in the car or at that track, but was making good progress. We were fast, we were making good decisions, and just kept moving forward. And it was the very last lap of the race. You know, there was this red and white Kia that I'd been trying to chase down the whole time, and I finally had a shot in the last third of the last lap. And that was really probably the most memorable moment of that race, was moving from 6th to 5th on the very last turn. There might have been a little bit of rubbing, but you know, we got the job done.
Something about his sponsor just didn't really feel right. He didn't feel like the nicest guy to me, really, or the best guy. So, yeah, it's weird. Like, he would change. And sometimes he'd be really weird about stuff, and it just kind of made me a little bit nervous that something was wrong or something.
Yeah, race 2, the rain fell, which is known as one of the great equalizers in racing. It doesn't really matter how fast your car is or how powerful your car is. You have to be a driver that's comfortable in the rain, and you have to get your setup right. And we didn't necessarily get the setup right because we hadn't planned on a rain race. This was a surprise overnight. I don't know Austin weather or how to predict it or whatnot, but nonetheless, we showed up in the morning and it was wet. We didn't have a chance to go practice or tune, so we kind of had to throw the dice, and Chris made one decision, I made a different decision. We also didn't know if maybe the rain was going to go away and the track was going to dry, so Chris left his car a little bit on the stiffer side. I made a more traditional change and softened things up a little bit, not knowing really what it was going to do. We'd never tested the Astons in the rain. We hadn't had a rain race in them in that format before. I had run the Aston at Coda in the rain in the Continental Tire format and had a pretty successful run. I'm also very confident in the rain. Being from the Northwest, a lot of the driving and training that I've done has been in the rain.
Chris Wilson will look for that VP Racing Fuels acceleration zone cone. That's where the pole sitter can determine when he wants to start. We'll wait for that green flag. You see that cone right off to the right there. So anywhere there, and he does accelerate. Green flag. We're underway with round number 2 of our GTS class.
Side by side up the hill towards turn 1. They're going to make sure they don't cross that white line on the pit lane exit. Chris Wilson this morning, he told me after the warm-up, he said the car was all over the place. It was a real handful in the wet conditions. First time he's ever driven it in the wet on these Pirelli tires, and he was really struggling.
It was very slippery. It was very challenging. I knew from the beginning that Chris really had his hands full because he won the first race hands down pretty easily, and I could see him fighting really hard to hold his position, and then I'd see him fall back a spot, fall back another spot. And there were clearly some other cars that were set up better than us. There was moments where somebody would go by you or be making a move in a corner, and you're going, you can't do that, because I know I can't do that right now, and somehow their car would stick and they'd get by.
I mean, it's very, very slippery out there. We can see the cars moving around an awful lot, but they're giving themselves really just a sensible amount of racing room, so they're allowing for the other guy to get sideways coming out of the corners. Very smart driving.
And it was about lap 10 or 11, all of a sudden, Chris was the car in front of me, and he had started on pole, so I knew that Chris was having challenges, most likely with his setup.
Close in a little bit on this battle in front of him. That's Derek DeBoer and Tony Gapel slithering around in front of him. And Andy Lee there trying to keep that car under control, coming through turns 9 and 10 and hanging on the back of that, what is now a 4-car train, and battling away for 8, 9, 10, 11 places.
And at the same time, I wanted to respect my teammate. I wanted to respect the elder of the team, the pro driver, and I also didn't want to commit the ultimate sin in racing, which is hitting your teammate or taking out your own teammate.
Chris Wilson is in 9th, Andy Lee in 10th. Derek DeBoer, that was pretty close to Chris Wilson, and then sort of just started checking out a little bit and pulled away from this group.
But I had more pace, and our setup was right, and I got past Chris and had a little bit better result in that race, and it was just, one of those things. On any given day, anything can happen, and we got our setup a little bit more right than he did that day, and had a decent result. I think you'll see that we probably weren't that excited about the result. We had a win and a 5th place in race 1, so that kind of increases where you think you should be. And we would have ultimately liked to end up with 2 Astons on the podium, and we just didn't get to that time.
Derek DeBoer, also an excellent drive in that Black Rider Racing Aston Martin Vantage GT4 car in the 09 car in 7th place.
Yeah, well, the setup just sucks. We're just bad at it.
So, everybody else seemed to make some changes that were just like unapproachable for us. I couldn't even begin to go through turn 2 or the carousel like everybody in front of me was.
I was amazed when I saw people passing me and how fast they were going. I was like, holy crap.
So was all the crew. They were like, what's going on with that Camaro? Because they were last yesterday, so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously it's very soft.
Yeah.
And our cars are very stiff because that's what makes them work well in the drives. It was not a happy day at Aston Martin land.
No, we had higher aspirations, but thank you and good job.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah, the beginning of that race was very exciting.
I should have been more aggressive in the beginning because I was faster than some of the cars around me. I just wasn't wanting to hit something hard enough to end my day. And I didn't know how everybody was going to respond. We were so tight for like the first half of a lap, and then once they got away, I couldn't stay with. I could have kept them behind, I think. But it was good. I think we did what we could do.
I thought for sure those guys in the front were going to take each other out, but that just never really happened.
On that.
A lot of close stuff was happening there, but
yeah.
So.
Cool.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Yes. I love ya.
Love ya.
It was one of the most stressful weekends of my life with everything that was going on with the sponsor situation and the feeling that this really exciting season in front of me might be going away. Going to St. Petersburg, the stress continued, and we didn't know what to do. We didn't know whether to continue or to stop because the sponsor was still saying, oh, things are just delayed. Things are not happening as I thought they were. We're still good. We're still good. And ultimately, with the team owner, we decided that the contract had been signed to go do this. We needed to honor and do the racing that we said we were going to do. The way that those 2 races work, the truck goes from Petaluma to Texas. We have that race. Hopefully you don't ruin the race cars, and they can then just get loaded up and move to St. Petersburg. So much of the infrastructure and cost to be there had already happened. So we really just decided that the best thing to do was go do the race. Hopefully everything will pan out afterwards and we can move on with the rest of the season. If it doesn't, we've honored and done what we said we would do. So that put a lot of pressure on for that race. You know, all of a sudden I was back to where I had always been in racing, where, okay, I've got one chance to do it. It might be my last one. Better go do it right and prove to people that you belong here.
Just keep me alive. I'm gonna get back for the kids.
Got it. One of the things that I hadn't told Brooke when she signed up to go on a passenger ride is that I'd never driven the track at St. Pete. So that was a little bit of a new experience. I'd never driven a street course. And street courses are very unique in the fact that there's no runoff area, there's just walls. So when Brooke talks about signing her life away and saying, take good care of me on this one, I had my hands full and I had to be really careful. I just didn't have that great of a start to that weekend. It was the first time I'd ever run a street course. I was coming off of a bit of a high from COTA because it was like, okay, we just proved we can fight for wins, we can go be on the podium. We just got a 5th place in our first try, so this season could really be a big one. And just, I didn't get the job done qualifying. I don't know if it was, maybe I let the mental part affect me more than I let it in COTA. Or it might have just been that it was such a new experience. Like, first time on a street course, you're surrounded with concrete walls, and I'm in this financial situation where we can't afford to be there. The sponsor isn't paying for us to be there. I just felt a really great sense of responsibility to not mess up, to not crash the car, and to try to do the best job I could.
I frown upside down.
That's right. After all, you're here driving an Aston Martin. Should be awesome.
Right.
Tell me about qualifying.
It was shitty. Disappointed. I don't like being, I think I'm slower than the middle. I'd like to at least be in the front half fast part of the field. And I had the ability to, but I just didn't get it right. So now I gotta deal with it tomorrow in the race. As long as that can go faster than me.
Derek, this race that ended up getting just a little too close to the wall, ended up whacking it a little bit and spinning out, and that's what happened. This is the right side toe link for the car. This is all supposed to be nice and straight, and it is not straight anymore.
Pretty tough to be able to handle that. I was probably doing about 140 or so when it took that bonk and spun me. I was just getting a little too aggressive. And I was trying to get that other Aston in front of me.
Yeah, we were trying to get him, and you know, he drove the last half of the race like this, so his steering wheel was pretty much turned almost halfway to the right. So that's, just gives a testament to this guy's skill in driving that race car.
So I got my first street course experience done, race weekend is done, and it's time to go home. And I was left wondering, do I get to race again?
He has the best car.
I'll take that. Yeah. Honestly, I'd rather have an Aston Martin than a Mustang any day of the week.
You take your order, sir? Yeah, hey, I'll take 15 pieces of bacon, 3 pieces of toast, and 2 eggs scrambled.
Fantastic. We'll get that right out.
Shut